Well, hang on.
Hello, welcome. If you're just joining us, this is the School Garden Support Organization Network virtual gathering focused on distance teaching and learning during COVID-19. My name is Tristana and I lead up the edible education programs for Whole Kids Foundation. I'm excited to kind of launch this webinar and we'll then be passing it over to Kids Gardening to lead the webinar and take us through. A huge thank you to them for putting this virtual gathering together. So we'll go ahead and get started. I know we've got some folks still joining. So this is our agenda today. We'll be, as questions allow, we'll be going till about 15 minutes after the hour. I'll be going over some housekeeping and just kind of sharing a bit about the School Garden Support Organization Network, and then sharing a bit about who's joined us today on our virtual gathering. And then I'll be passing it off to Kids Gardening to really dive into all the other pieces. Next slide, please. So just some housekeeping for today. There will be a recording of the virtual gathering shared in a follow-up email. There's also going to be a PDF copy of the presentation itself in the chat. Just to allow for everyone to receive that PDF copy, we'll share it in just a couple of minutes, so you'll see it pop up on the chat. And then please do utilize the chat. Go ahead and introduce yourself, share your name, your organization, where you're from. We really love for these gatherings to be a chance for you all to connect with each other and network. So if you feel inclined to do so, please utilize the chat for that function. And then we're also going to have the opportunity for you all to ask questions. Please utilize the Q&A section, which is different from the chat section for that. Feel free to ask questions throughout. And then as you're asking questions, please do read through the questions already asked and see if a question that you're about to ask has already been asked. And then you can go ahead and upvote that question to allow for us to know, which questions are most popular or most of interest to the group here today. And then we will be asking our panelists to answer the questions. But in addition, if you feel that you also can answer that question, you can raise your hand, not that way through the video, but via the Zoom functionality. And we will unmute you and kind of let you know we're unmuting you if you'd like to answer verbally. Or in addition to that, as we're asking the questions, you can also utilize the chat box to type in your answer. If you joined us last week, you knew it was a little bit crazy, so we're trying out this kind of process to see if it's a little bit better. And then finally, there will be a feedback survey at the end. It should just pop up in your browser, so you'll see a tab pop up. There is just one survey. I think it's going to be coming at you from multiple different ways. So if you could fill that up, that would be hugely helpful to us as we continue to provide this content for you. Great, I already see people in the chat. That's awesome. Great, next slide, please. So we are the School Garden Support Organization Network. You can find us at sgsonetwork.org. Our goal is just to create dialogue amongst organizations that support school gardens. We have a number of different ways through which we do this. We have webinars, which you are currently on, at different schedules kind of throughout the year, showcasing just best practices. We have in-person gatherings, when we can do those types of things, including our Leadership Institute, our National Summit, and all sorts of gatherings during conferences. And then we have our digital commons, where we connect with each other via our Google Forum, as well as our email list. Next slide, please. So we are a huge, large organization made up of a lot of different types of organizations and entities. So this just shows who registered for the gathering today, majority being nonprofit, but we also have schools and school districts, as well as government agencies, colleges, and school food services. Next slide, please. This is our upcoming webinar and virtual gathering schedule. Last week, we had garden care and maintenance and management during COVID-19. You can check out that recording via our website. And then next week, we've got COVID-friendly outdoor classroom infrastructure and design coming up. And then bringing social and emotional learning and mindfulness education to your work. The next two coming up will be webinars and will be more of a kind of a presentation style versus kind of this best practice sharing between our network. And then we've got a couple of other ones coming up as well, including school garden support for food relief and food pantries, which will be a virtual gathering, and then addressing equity in school garden programs, which will be a webinar. So we've got kind of two different types of ways of sharing and networking together. Next slide, please. So this is our forum. You can go onto the forum via sgso-network.org/forum. You can also get to it via /connect on our website. This is a place where you can go and see a lot of different kind of conversations organized, and kind of see a full thread. You can also join the forum or kind of respond to the forum via email. And we do have a section specifically for COVID-19 resources. You kind of see at the top of the page there if you'd like to look for resources specifically for this period of time. Next slide, please. And yes, they're highlighted in pink there. And then specifically on our website, sgso-network.org/COVID, we have a number of resources specifically during these times, including a roundup of distance teaching resources, as well as resources for how to access and care for your garden. So kind of a full kind of spreadsheet that folks have shared there and kind of organized as well. Great, so now I'm gonna pass it off to Christine Gall at Kids Gardening to kind of take us through. Thanks so much.
Awesome, thank you very much for that introduction, Tristana. I would like to revisit the agenda with you all before we truly dive into the topic of today's virtual gathering. So we've gone through our housekeeping and the introduction of the SGSO-Network. We're gonna talk a little bit more about who is here today before we introduce a number of speakers who have volunteered to talk about how their organizations are supporting distance learning and teaching at this time. We will wrap up the virtual gathering with a question and answer session. And as Tristana said, you can pose your questions in the question and answer function throughout the webinar. And if you would like to share any answers, please do so in the chat function, or wait until we get to the end of the virtual gathering, where you'll be able to raise your hand and hopefully participate in the question and answer session. Can we have the next slide, please? So, who's here today? Many of us are dealing with different situations when it comes to where we are teaching this fall. So we have the vast majority of participants in this virtual gathering are participating in all distance teaching. After that, it looks like most people are engaged in some hybrid models. Some of you don't know, and a very small percentage of participants are going to be involved in fully opened in-person schooling. But let's head on to the next slide. And we would like to do a poll with all of you. We're gonna open this up shortly, but we would like to know the current status of your school garden programming. So while we've talked about whether or not you might be in person or not, we are curious about what you are currently providing to your students and to your youth. So you can take some time to participate in this poll. We'll leave it open for a little bit, and we'll see what people are dealing with right now and what you're trying to be doing with your programming. So right now it looks like the majority of people are providing all online resources. Many of you, though, are also maintaining gardens, but not necessarily working with youth in those gardens. take another minute or a couple seconds or so to fill out that poll. Looks like most people have participated at this point. So our kind of results held true. The vast majority of you are providing online resources and support. And that's great because that is going to be what we are talking about a lot today in our virtual gathering. So let's close up this poll and we can move on to our next slide, which is, we just wanted to kind of give you an example of a resource that you might find really, really helpful at this time. So this is the School Garden Support Organization-Network, their distance teaching resource roundup. It can be accessed via the SGSO COVID resource page. And it's a really wonderful resource that lists a handful of different programs, curriculum, video series, you name it, that you can access online. In this, you can kind of search by descriptions of the resource. You can take a look at the target audience. So whether it's serving educators and parents and kind of aimed at them, if it's aimed at both children and adults, if it includes videos, live streams, if it includes cooking recipes, whatever. This document also contains a kind of list of storybooks that can be really great to tackle with youth kind of engaged in remote learning. That's one example of a resource that you might find helpful to kind of enhance your virtual learning and teaching that you are engaged in. And what we're going to do right now is hear from a number of participants, and they're going to talk about what their organizations are doing to support this type of learning. Folks who have volunteered to participate in this have been in contact with me. You will likely be invited to be a panelist, at which point you will be able to unmute yourself when it is your turn to participate. You can share, and then you will re-mute yourself. If for some reason you don't get invited to be a panelist, you can also raise your hand when it's your turn, and that will allow us to unmute you. So I'm going to kick us off by talking about a resource from Kids Gardening, which is the organization that I work with. So we provide a robust array of free online lesson plans, activities, and just general garden know-how that have been incredibly popular during the transition from in-person learning to remote learning. Considering so many people are interested in connecting with youth and getting them outside and doing garden-based activities at this time, we created a program called Lessons to Grow By to help families that are perhaps learning at home together this fall, as well as teachers who are trying to engage their students in virtual learning. So Lessons to Grow By is a 4-month program with weekly garden-based lessons, activities, things of that sort. And it's all delivered straight to your inbox. Each weekly activity bundle is tied to a monthly theme, is sequential, and kind of builds upon previous week's learnings. Will include a variety of activities, as well as suggested supplemental readings, videos, and more. Lessons to Grow By is going to be connected to core learning topics such as math, literacy, and science, and is largely aimed at 3rd through 5th graders, but these resources can be adapted to younger and older learners. It can be accessed on our website. It is a free subscription service, and it's going to be rolling out on August 30th or 31st, so very, very soon. So if you're interested in that, you can check out our website to find more. And at this point, we are going to start hearing from some of our virtual gathering participants. So I'd like to introduce Leah from Jones Valley Teaching Farm. So Leah, you can unmute yourself and take about 3 minutes or so to share with us how your program is doing some virtual learning these days.
Okay, thanks. Can y'all hear me?
Yep.
Okay, great. Well, I'm so excited to hear from everyone else because it's been really interesting for us to shift, but we feel like it's opened us up in a number of different ways. So since March, you know, when everything shut down, we decided one of our main focuses was going to still be on producing food for our community. And so we shifted a number of our staff who normally would have been in development and operations to work at our farms. So we are a nonprofit in Birmingham, Alabama, and we have 7 different teaching farms across the city, 6 of those being on school campuses, elementary, middle, and high school. So then while we took a couple of weeks to kind of get our, you know, heads wrapped around what the end of the school year would look like, in April, we had our instructors who normally would have been in the schools create their own at-home activities. So they were recording themselves at home doing an activity. We had a video, usually it ranged between like 2 to 10 minutes that went along with that, as well as a really simple lesson plan. All of those are posted on our blog, which you'll see on the slide. And I think it was March 23rd through April, we posted a number of those for varying grade levels. Those are all accessible still on our blog with the lesson plans and the videos that go along with them. In May, when we normally would have had, you know, our after school club kiddos out on the farms, we decided to shift our videos to kind of highlight some of the skills that they normally would be working really hard on and through May. And so I believe it's, yeah, through the whole month of May on our blog, also you can see a number of those videos that deal with like being a bug detective. So they'll say farm club badges. So it's kind of set up in the same way as like the Boy Scouts or Girl Scouts. So they could earn this badge by doing this skill. And so we took people, you know, parents, educators, whoever really needed any type of activity at home, they could access these lessons and these videos. So both of those things are available on our blog. If you can't access the actual link, it's just jvtf.org/our-blog. And I'm sure when this is sent out as a PDF, it'll probably be easily clickable. But then one of our big things that we did was we shifted our summer program, which normally would have been in person at our high school farm for rising 6th through 9th graders. And we decided to shift it completely virtual as well. So we built out a 4-week program. We had 20 middle school students who joined us twice a week for about 4 hours each of those days. And they went over gardening and culinary skills. We provided them with all of the materials that they would need through generous donations from our partners. And so we were giving them pots with soil and compost in them and seeds for squash and transplants for tomatoes and peppers. And they would also get a bag each week with all of their culinary supplies. So they got their own knives, whisks, measuring spoons, all of this, and then their own groceries and stuff that they would need for the week. So for 4 weeks, each week we made deliveries to our students, our 28 households. And we went through this program with them. We also had local chefs. We pre-recorded a lot of videos. We got really lucky. Someone on staff was already into videography and had a bunch of the equipment. And so we're extremely fortunate to have that person on staff to be able to even go out to our restaurants and have local chefs record culinary demos, or to be able to record our own staff doing like a harvest demo. And so we're likely using this model to recreate our after school programs this fall and up the number of students to about 60 households. So we'll get back with y'all and let you know how it goes. But I don't want to take up too much time, but if you want to hear more about the camp, you can go access our Instagram, which is Jones Valley Teaching Farm, and go through our highlights for the camp as well as other posts that we made throughout the time.
Thank you so much, Leah. We are going to be hearing from Hope next. Hope you can unmute yourself. Remember, let's take about 3 minutes. You can present about the Southern Boone Learning Garden, and Suzanne, you are on deck.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. So we have a school garden in mid-Missouri, Ashland, Missouri. It's about an acre farm, and we teach pre-K all the way through 5th grade on site every month. And we're supported by the Southern Boone Learning Garden Board, which is a nonprofit, but we are housed on the school grounds. In March, when we knew that we were going to be going virtual, I rounded up enough seeds to start almost 100 gardens with the students who wouldn't be able to plant with us during that normal springtime planting. So they started their own gardens there. We've provided some online lessons. Lyra did one with her sons at home, a worm bin, and did that lesson and shared it out. We have continued to maintain the garden and we've had a lot of tomatoes, a lot of cucumbers and squash and things that have gone to the community. Whoever needs it can come and get it. And what you can see in the picture there with those kids, that was during our summer school. And those are loofah that are growing in one of our small hoop houses. We right now are planning to start school on September 8th in seat. We do have a hybrid plan, sort of. And there's also a virtual plan that is being worked on. And our plan for us is a little up in the air at the moment, because we have the opportunity to pilot a new elementary agriculture program through one of our state senators, and that's for grades 3 through 5. And so all of those lessons are set, and we can use those for all elementary age, both virtual and in seat. And then with the primary kiddos, the pre-K through 2nd grade, we've already made a plan to do garden tours virtually, and then share out an activity that each of them can do, whether it's a backyard scavenger hunt, those kinds of things, and making sure that the activity meets the needs of that grade level student. We normally have an after-school program, a garden club that we've done in the past, so big at times we had to have 3 sessions, but I made the decision today that we're going to postpone until spring. I don't want to add any opportunity to, cause any kind of problems with the kids. So we're going to take every moment we can get with them in school and go from there. We have a lot of opportunities for them to grow here, and if we have to go virtual again, or even a hybrid method, we've got some things that we can do with them at that point.
That's really great, Hope. Thank you so much for sharing. We definitely want to move right along so that we have enough chance for everyone to share all the incredible things that their program is doing. So Suzanne, you can go ahead and mute yourself. And Sharon, I believe that you are up on deck. Thank you.
Okay, can everyone hear me now? Or can everybody? Well,
you're all
anyway.
set, Suzanne. We can hear you loud and clear.
Great. I'm out here in very hot and very smoky Central Valley, northern part of California, where we grow everything from avocados to zucchini, and everybody's harvesting right now anyway. Yolo Farm to Fork is a private nonprofit. We work directly with about 12 elementary and high schools in various communities around here. And when March struck and everything shut down, we decided that distance learning was not going to be an option for us. Instead, we wanted to turn to hands-on activities for kids at home. So we made a giant pivot away from the planting that we had planned for March and April and May in the gardens that we work with. And we pulled our team together, and they put together 400 kits for home gardens that included the things that you see here, some tomato can planters because we have a tomato cannery here, a lot of organic seeds, some soil, some plant starts, all the things that they would need to start a small garden at home. And we distributed them. How are we going to deliver those? We thought everybody's at home. However, we have some superheroes in our school food services folks who were delivering grab and go lunches. And so we simply contacted them and said, can we help distribute these 400 kits through your grab and goes on Fridays when people come? And they were incredibly well received. I mean, they went like hotcakes. So that gave us the sense that probably we should be doing more hands-on kits, because that's our philosophical tendency anyway. We want kids to have their hands in the dirt. We believe that a kid learns better and that learning sticks better when they use all their muscles and all their senses. So that's what we're doing at this point. We are putting together with our partners, our school districts and our local businesses, another set of kits that we will be able to distribute along with lesson plans that teachers can use. They're going to be 4th grade lesson plans that teachers can use, and those lessons address their 4th grade English language arts, math, science, and CTE standards, so that teachers can incorporate this hands-on activity with their lessons, and the kits will be distributed to their kits in their classes. That's kind of the very short version of a very long story that's been going on here for the last 6 months, but I did want to make sure that everybody got a chance to talk. So I'm going to wait for any questions that you might have.
Awesome. Thank you, Suzanne. If anyone has any questions about her program or the other programs that are being discussed, we'll hopefully be able to tackle those at the end of the virtual gathering. But let's move on to our next presenter. Thomas, unfortunately, is not here with us today, so we're going to move on to the next person. Sharon, you can unmute yourself, and then Nick, you are on deck.
All right, you can hear me? Hello, can you hear me?
We can hear you just fine.
Okay, great, thank you. So we are here, Coastal Roots Farm in Encinitas, California. It's southern by San Diego. We are a Jewish community and education farm with a mission of donating more than half of our produce to communities out around us and having a pay what you can farm stand. Our Instagram is Coastal Roots Farm, so thank you for asking that. So when COVID first hit, we had to cancel everything, and like the first presenter said, everybody in administration, education, everyone got their placement in the production field so that we can continue feeding the community. And after a month of that, we decided to start doing Facebook Lives and virtual school and group visits. And so like a field trip. And so we definitely were able to engage with the community through our Facebook Live, and we are going to continue doing that. And then we saw that there were a couple of organizations around us in San Diego that were opening up in person for camp. So we decided to do the same. So we had in-person summer farm camp following all the CDC guidelines, kids wearing masks. We had small pods and that weren't interacting with one another, and they were together the whole week. And it was such a success. We opened up 7 weeks, each week being able to hold 24 campers, and we sold out in 2 days. And so seeing that was such a need, and the camp continued to be full all summer long, even when the COVID numbers were going up and down, that we are now going into an after-school farm camp program as well on site, following the same CDC guidelines. So that's been really exciting. The one program we couldn't have on site we are in partnership with another school district in the area where we were supposed to get all 1,800 fourth graders onto our site this coming school year. So we have definitely changed that to a virtual learning. And what you can see here is part of that virtual learning where they're going to be learning about plant parts and their functions. We're going to distribute seeds and soil and peat pots for them to pick up at the school. And they're going to learn how to do botanical drawings before we get together on a virtual visit. And then once we're together and we're teaching them online distance learning, we're going to teach them some more about the plant parts and how each part has a function that's needed for growth. And then after that, the next part is teaching them about food waste. And we wanted to make sure to put in the social emotional learning into our lessons. And so just to talk to them about food waste. And we know that many of these students from the school district are the lower SES community. And so we wanted to make sure that for them to know that they can eat many parts of their plants and they don't have to throw it out as fast. And so we'll teach them how to create vegetable stock and then encourage them and empower them to create their own recipe and share it with other students in the class. And so then this way we're able to do both on-site and virtual programming. If you want to know anything else about our farm, please ask and I will answer in the chat.
Thank you so much for that really wonderful overview of your programming. Nick, you are up next, and we have Stephanie coming right after you.
Thanks. Hi, everyone. I'm Nick. I'm at the Edible Schoolyard in Berkeley, California. And like Sharon and like Leah at Jones Valley, a lot of our team spent the beginning of the pandemic really focused on getting as much food in the ground and out of the ground as we could, and spreading that and sharing that within our community through the Berkeley Food Network. As far as our response to creating programming for distance learning, we created the Edible Education for the Home Classroom, or Edible Ed at Home series of lessons. And we've published over 40 lessons online that are all downloadable, accessible for free. And those are lessons that are designed to be delivered digitally, but engage students in hands-on activities, taking them away from the screen at home. So supporting them to cook and garden and do all the types of experiences that they would in our classrooms, but at home. We have a new curriculum coming out that will be released later at the beginning of September. And that's going to be a curriculum all about independence in the kitchen and supporting students to be cooking on their own at home. We're really excited for the release of that. I encourage you to stay tuned. You can follow our Instagram at Edible Schoolyard and visit our website to see the Edible Ed at Home lessons that have already been published and to see the new curriculum set when it comes out next month. Thanks so much for letting me share here.
Yeah, and thank you, Nick, for presenting about this really wonderful resource that folks can access. All right, we have Stephanie from Ready to Grow Gardens, and Katie, you are on deck.
All right, hi everybody. Let's see, I am a socialpreneur, so I am not a nonprofit. I started my business in 2002 after completing a master gardening certification and was doing my volunteer work with school gardens. And so at that time, I made the jump from volunteering a whole school year, developing a gardening at school program. There wasn't anything like that in our school district at the time. And I was closely following everything happening in California and using that kind of as a guidepost because it just wasn't being done here. And I started my business and then slowly, just as a part-time thing, and I started and it just grew. And so now 18 years later, this year I'll be going in with 3 teachers. Last year I had 5, so we've downsized with everything that's going on, but we service and partner with 30 schools in our area, and that crosses 4 different school districts. We have a few private early education centers, so we maintain, manage, and teach students in 30 school gardens now. So our program has basically been well received because we ask very little of the teachers, and we do it all. We bring the curriculum, we maintain the garden, we manage the garden, Of course, volunteers, it makes everything better when volunteers are there, but the big challenge for us is that we are not sure how it's going to go, asking more of the teachers now that we're in the situation that we're in. So the schools in our area are a hybrid, like that was said earlier. So we'll have some districts that are very heavily weighted in person starting September 8th, and other districts that our biggest district that is probably 60-40. So only 40% of the students will be in school and 60% will be learning virtually. So we, over the summer, my team and I worked very hard to listen to teachers and to come up with a plan that could be a strong, solid virtual program. And so that's what we've done. And I'm still not even sure, it varies day to day on what our participation is going to be going back in, just because everybody's trying to figure out where their budget lies and you know, where they're allocating funds based on hiring new staff to help with COVID needs. But what we've developed is a very easy to use, very simple group of support elements virtually, including a garden day lesson, which will be about 15 minutes long on whatever the garden topic is. So whatever we would be teaching in the garden, because that's our model, is to teach the kids one class at a time in their school garden. So this will be a recorded video that will be shared via YouTube, but privately on their platform. Each school district has their own platform. We'll also have a garden tour video that will be updated so that we can show that. We'll be working with the teachers to provide really simple instructions. That's our biggest fear, is that they're overwhelmed already. And so if normally we worry about how to plant the carrot seeds, but now we're asking the teachers to lead that. Making it very simple so that nothing is a headache. So the big thing is simplicity, very direct, very all in one link, one Google slide, and then all the links embedded in that slide. We're utilizing Bitmoji, which I'm not sure if any of y'all are doing that, but that's kind of been the thing here to make it cute and cartoony for the teachers to make their virtual classroom. So we've come up with our own Bitmoji virtual classroom to share all of our links. We hope to be back in person teaching, following social distancing in the garden, but I've been afraid to push for that because I'm afraid if I push too hard asking for that permission that I'll get a hard no. So I've taken the stance, just as a small business owner, to just step back, provide as much value as I can, and then wait for the invitation to come back in person. So I'm hoping that will happen, but until then, I'm just going to provide as much value as I can, simplify it, but make it good virtually, and then hopefully get back in there to teach in person to our students in the garden. That's about it.
Fantastic. Thank you, Stephanie. It's always great to hear about community members who are stepping up and creating resources for schools in their area. All right, we have Katie up next, and Chelsea, you are on deck.
Hi, everybody. My name is Katie Bainline, and I'm coming to you from Southern Oregon. I work for Logos Public Charter School, which is located in Medford. We serve students in grades K through 12, over 1,000 students coming from 2 counties in our area. And we serve homeschool families. So our families are already set up to work from home. And as teachers, we offer support to the parents, we order curriculum for them, and we provide enrichment opportunities. So one of those enrichment opportunities is our garden program. So I am the garden coordinator, so I coordinate those efforts. And before COVID, our structure has been primarily bi-monthly seasonal events, highlighting the garden and harvesting, cooking, empowering families, getting kids to get their hands dirty. When COVID hit, of course, our students weren't allowed to come on our campus, and actually our teachers weren't as well. So the garden kind of fell to the wayside. But luckily a local, sorry about my dog. He was fast asleep right until I started talking. So a local environmental group in our area, they actually had an idea to put together daily videos, which connect students to their outdoor environment. And so I decided to take that on as well, and I filmed 9 videos in the spring, 1 per week, to kind of finish out the year. And those can be found on our, they're on our YouTube channel. So actually, I only contributed 1 a week, but if you want to look up Outside Every Day, I don't know where those are all compiled, but they're through the Southern Oregon Environmental Educator Leaders, I believe is what it's called. And there were daily videos posted. I can try to find that link and send it to the leaders of this webinar. So anyway, I worked with a coworker to put together, thanks Brooke. I put together some videos every week with my coworker, who is actually really good at video editing, so that was awesome. And I shifted our garden to being more of a demonstration garden instead of a living garden, where students were actively involved. And so we recorded various videos that you can find on our YouTube channel, and purely educational. They weren't really functional, like the students weren't there harvesting. So this year I've kind of decided to simplify and take on that model that I did in the spring. And you can see our schedule for this year. I'm putting together a monthly video series, which will be seasonal, similar like what we did before in the past. So like our beloved squash pie event we'll be doing, but without kids doing the video. But we'll be doing our squash pie event like we have in the past. And also highlighting products that we'd like to sell as fundraisers, like we've always sold our mint tea. So hopefully I'm going to be getting that started again and do a video on mint tea harvest. I'm hoping to put together a website, maybe link to our school website. And so feel free to contact me. I'll put my email in the chat if anybody wants to have access to the things I'll be putting out this year. It's a work in progress, as all of us I'm sure are experiencing, and just trying to adapt as much as possible and trying to simplify my life to not be the sole maintainer of the garden, and really focusing on the home and encouraging families to garden in their own home as much as possible. So thank you guys so much. I'll put my email in the chat and let me know if you have any questions.
Great, thank you, Katie. It seems like a really wonderful video series. All right, next we have Chelsea, and after her, we're gonna have our final presenter, Sandra.
Hi, can you guys hear me okay?
Yep, you're good.
Perfect. Okay, so my name's Chelsea Lathrop. I'm the Virtual Academy producer at Green Our Planet. And so Green Our Planet is based in Las Vegas. We have around 180 school gardens across the valley. And we work with the Clark County School District. We work with private and public schools. And we also have a hydroponics program that is national. So we have schools in Alaska, New York, Florida, and Missouri as well. And so part of our programming is to have, we have 2 STEMworks accredited curriculums, the hydroponics program and our outdoor school garden classroom program. And for our 2 programs, usually they're in person. So with the change of COVID, we are now figuring out how can we do this online. So what we've done is pivot from all of our in-person, our chef demos, our farmer lessons, our hydroponics lessons to online events. So we now have our videos, which are part of the Green Our Planet Virtual Academy. It can be accessed on our website, greenourplanet.org/virtual academy. You can go to our website and there's a link to it as well. We also upload all of our videos to YouTube, which I forgot to put the YouTube link here, but if you search Green Our Planet, we have the link to all of our tutorials, our DIY, maintenance, the lessons that are, they're STEM aligned and they follow the NGSS standards. So they are up to standards K through 5. We're working on our pre-K lessons as well. So it will be focused on elementary school. And then we also have chef demos that focus on nutrition lessons and healthy snacks. And so with that resource, it's going to be put into a newsletter that'll go out every week. And each week we'll highlight different videos. So if you guys wanted to subscribe to that, you can do that on our website as well. And it'll come to your inbox every Tuesday with our new videos. But all of the videos will be linked to our website as well, or that YouTube channel. And so our farmers are still out there in the gardens and they're still maintaining. We do all the schooling here in Vegas is all virtual. So we have 317,000 students going to school on their laptops, but we have 180 school gardens that are still being maintained by our farmers. All that food is still being produced, and either the schools are harvesting and taking it with them, or they are actually donating it to us, and we donate it to a program called Delivering with Dignity, and they make meals for families in need. So none of our produce is going to waste. It is all going back into the community, which is a really great thing. And so if you guys have any questions or want to use our virtual academy, it is a free resource for you guys. And I'll put my email in the chat as well, but you can email inquiry@greenourplanet or chelsea@greenourplanet.org, and I can give you more resources, more information. And we are really excited to be working with you guys and help in any way that we can. So yeah, thanks.
Thank you so much for sharing, Chelsea. All right, we're going to move on to our final presenter, Sandra. You can unmute yourself and share with the group.
Okay, everybody hear me okay?
Yep, we can hear you just fine.
Great. Thanks for having me. So my name is Sandra Noy. I am the garden educator at an elementary school in Cotati and Roanoke Park, California. We have had a garden program for about 4 years. And with this whole pivot to virtual learning in the spring, it was sort of more crisis learning. And at that point, none of our teachers, regular classroom teachers, were even sure what they were doing, much less what do we do with the garden. So I just said, oh, well, I can just start making videos. And so I made a weekly video in the spring to keep that connection with our students. We have about 220 students at our school. So I made a weekly video to let them know what was growing, what was ready to harvest, and talk about what we were doing to prepare the garden for the summer. In addition to being the garden teacher, I am also the one of the primary caretakers of the garden. I do have some really awesome family volunteers that help take care of our garden. So videos, like a lot of people have mentioned, have been the primary method we're using to connect to our students. And as we moved into fall and knew we were going to be doing this virtual learning, we wanted to make our videos more robust and also find an interactive element, because unlike the classroom teachers, I don't have like a Google Classroom where I can give students assignments and gather their feedback. So my principal suggested I use a Google form. And now what we're doing is we produce videos, usually 3 to 5 videos a week. And some of them are only like 2 to 3 minutes long, and some of them are about 8 to 10 minutes long. So there'll be a couple of instructional videos. So you can see on the slide, I've got 2 pictures. One says seed hunting in the habitat garden, and one is harvesting seeds in the garden. So I just walked around showing students how they would collect seeds. Our first project we asked them to do was to go on a seed hunt in their home or in a garden or a park. So that way, wherever they can collect seeds. So we talked about how, if you don't have access to an outdoor location, you can collect seeds from your kitchen. When your parent cuts up an apple for you, you can collect those seeds. Or if you eat a tomato, you can collect those seeds. And then they're doing sort of some compare and contrasting, and they're providing response to the lesson in a Google form. So I'm able to collect that student voice and then also present that back to them by way of using a couple of different graphs. And the word cloud is kind of a popular thing. So there's a site called Mentimeter, Mentimeter, and it's a I think there is a paid option, but we just use the free option. You can create word clouds. So one of the first questions we asked was, what kind of animals did you see outside this summer? And it was really cute to collect those answers, pollinators, ladybugs, all their different input, and put it up in a word cloud. And our principal used that in her newsletter to sort of feed that back to the parents. This is what your students are talking about in their outdoor classroom. This is what they're learning. Let's see. The other thing we're doing now, I actually just finished today. So we have 10 classes at our school, or actually, I'm sorry, 9 classes at our school. And we are every 2 weeks, the teachers have students coming to school, or they're adults coming to school to pick up supplies. So we thought, oh, well, we can do garden lessons this way. And so I created 2 garden kits, one for like next week and the next week. And then at the next supply kit, I'll include another 2 kits. So for example, one of the kits was how to make a seed packet. And the instructional video will be, here are some seed packets, here's the information that's normally on them. And just talking about what is a seed supposed to do, what does a seed need? Just like all living things need, food, water, sunlight, and get the students really kind of thinking about what do living things need as they create that seed packet. There's sort of an art element because they get to draw, as well as count their seeds, sort their seeds, figure out how many seeds they want to put in their packet, and maybe they can plant some as well. We like to give them that option of doing, using the materials at home in whatever way too. I don't actually have an Instagram account. I am on Twitter and I'm on YouTube. And let's see, the last thing I wanted to suggest or tell everyone about what we're doing is we use Sign Up Genius for our parents or our families to come onto site to be able to help maintain the garden. That's something we've normally done the past several summers to help maintain the garden. And during this virtual learning, our principal wanted to encourage everyone to still come on site in small numbers, so just family units, to come to the garden, follow all of the normal procedures, hand sanitizer, hand washing, but that way they can still participate in the garden and get that connection. So between the videos and occasionally being able to come on site and harvest a few tomatoes, or strawberries, whatever is currently available, they're still getting that outdoor connection. So, okay, I think that's everything I have. All of our videos are up there on YouTube, and you can see Twitter. We just share pictures and retweet things from like School Garden Network. So thanks so much.
Yeah. All right, that concludes our panel of speakers. A huge thank you to them for talking about what they and their programs are doing to support distance learning and teaching at this time. Throughout their presentations, we've had a handful of questions come in that may have been answered through the chat or directly to the folks who asked questions, but I'm going to turn it over to Tristana now, who might lead us through this final portion of our virtual gathering.
Great, thanks so much. And thank you everyone for kind of working with us on this amazing technology to both chat with one another and also ask questions. If you would like a question to be asked verbally, please enter it into the Q&A section. We won't be pulling questions out of the chat. Love how you all have been chatting with each other and asking each other questions and answering in the chat. That's fantastic. And then again, please don't type answers into the Q&A, but type those into the chat. So we're going to kind of do these one at a time. First, I'm going to start with how are folks addressing issues of equity and access during virtual learning? How are folks including their most vulnerable students in their virtual learning plans? If you have some suggestions that you'd just like to type in, feel free to add those to the chat section. And then if you have anything you'd like to share verbally, go ahead and raise your hand and John will unmute you. While people are raising their hands, I will share that John Fisher has shared that their district has distributed technology and are opening up in-person school sites to help serve some of their kids. They also have TOSAs that are supporting distance learning. In addition to that, we're doing a webinar on equity and access, and we'll, hope to kind of address that, bring more information and discuss that topic. And then another resource to check out is Green Schoolyard has been doing a number of working groups, and in the Q&A section, there is a link to their working group on plans to ensure equity. So a couple of resources there. John, do we have anyone that would like to answer?
I do not see anyone that has raised their hands. Cynthia Mallison, you've had your hand up for a while, so I don't know if you have, well, I'm going to switch to Brooke because Brooke just jumped in. And Brooke, I'm going to allow you to talk, so you should be able to unmute yourself and share on the question.
Our district, or actually our school foundation, was able to send devices home to every child. And we also had a tech team that was able to make sure that all of our underserved families had tech support. But then also one of the things that really worked out well, in fact, this even happened this morning, I had a whole bunch of printables that I was sending out to students because our first task for our garden classes was to make our garden journals where we document all of our information throughout the year. And one of my students wasn't able to print them out at home. And so very quickly, I just got onto our town kind of free cycle program and just said, hey, we have a family who doesn't have an at-home printer for the second grader. And then you get a dozen people that are going through and getting rid of old devices. And so we just had this plethora of outpouring support that was able to happen either through, this was through our town forum, but also on Free Cycle. So that might really be able to help if somebody does have students that need some technology, reach out to your community or your greater community, because everyone right now is purging their home and updating for at-home offices, which means there's a lot of older equipment that works perfectly well for garden students.
Thank you, Brooke. We also had Lindsay. I gave you permission to talk if you could address.
Thank you. This may be a really obvious thing, but we also have been creating video resources in absence of being able to have teachers teaching in our gardens. And so for every video resource we've created that'll go on the website with instructions, I've been making sure that all the activities that we suggest that kids do elsewhere include something they can do inside their home, something they could do outside, or something they could do in a garden if they had access, and just really trying to honor that there's going to be kids who can't leave their home at all, and not assume that everybody has access to garden or even nature. And so I am making sure that there's worksheets available and encouraging people to just look at them on the screen and engage with them in that way if they need to, if they can't print. So fairly obvious thing, but just making sure we have those 3 areas covered in each lesson. That's it.
Those are the only folks we had with their hand raised. So Tristana, if you want to go on to another question, or if any panelists have any suggestions on addressing equity and access during these challenging times. Alexis
Yes,
Lee just raised your hand. So
great.
I'm going to allow Alexis to speak.
Awesome. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Hi. So I'm with Living Classroom in Mountain View. Equity is a big thing that we've been trying to address in our lessons. The district has actually asked us to teach our lessons live via Zoom. And so one of the things that we're going to be doing, above the fact that the district has provided devices for all students, is we made sure that in our lessons, we can't send home materials at this point. So we've made sure that all of our lessons require few to no materials above paper and pencil for the students. So we're adding the engagement factor back in, since it won't be as hands-on as our lessons would normally be. we're adding that engagement factor through costumes and songs and body movement, but we're making no assumptions about any other materials besides paper and a pencil that students might have at home.
That is a great way to think about how we're going to support distance teaching when we're not sure kids will be able to find their supplies if we send them home with too many supplies. That's something we thought about in our programs. I'm going to pass it back to Tristana to queue up another question.
Great, thank you everyone. So we'll move on now to how are folks approaching virtual learning in a way that still engages sensory learning and connection with the outdoors and living things. Feel free to answer anything in the chat section. And if you'd like to share verbally, please raise your hand. Just to share, we've gotten a couple of answers from our panelists. Sandra shared that in their videos, they make an effort to talk about the senses and encourage them to get outdoors every day to see what plants and animals live near their home. Chelsea shared that they're teaching lessons in school gardens in which they record and turn into interactive video lessons for students and teachers. They are a teacher resource, but designed for students pre-K through 5th grade. And these lessons address sensory in a way that they would teach students if they were actually present, kind of pretending like they're there, and encourage them to try things at home. And these are all accessible via the Green Our Planet Virtual Academy, and I'll add that to the chat. So you can also see these answers kind of in the Q&A. I know there are a bunch in there, but I will add that particular link to the chat. Do we have any folks that would like to answer verbally?
So Brooke, it seems like you raised your hand, so you unmuted yourself. Continue.
So we were able to get really affordable fabric grow bags so that we could make grow at home kind of pop-up garden bags. And since we were able to do it for less than $5, we were able to do it for all the kids in our school district. And then they're able to have hands-on learning. And then we also asked, we were able to get a whole bunch of 5-gallon buckets from Sherwin-Williams and other paint companies. And we're able to turn those free 5-gallon buckets into do-it-yourself. We're using our STEM teacher to make worm bins for each of the kids, and those were free of charge as well. So we're incorporating that into our compost unit.
Thank you, Brooke. John, do we have any others?
Dawn Cleaves, I'm going to allow you to unmute yourself.
So with sending
Dawn,
stuff,
can you introduce yourself, your org, and where you're from? And for all people that are going to share, that would help.
Sorry.
You're still learning how to, well, we're figuring this out, how to get the voice of 180 people. So that would help. Thanks, Dawn.
Okay, so I'm Dawn Cleaves, and I am the garden coordinator for Richardson ISD for some Title I schools. And the number of students that I support is kind of huge. And so one of my questions is, does anybody do the kits for at home by request only? I haven't really gotten support for creating the number of kits to actually just give them to everybody. And so I've been trying to figure out, is there a way that I can do them by request only? And, you know, you don't want to send worms home if the parents don't want them. Anybody have ideas about that?
I totally agree with that, Dawn. This is John from Life Lab in Santa Cruz, and that is something we thought about instead of blanketing 4,000 kids with kits. And then we thought about the idea of having them request a kit, and then we would distribute their kits through the food distribution program that happens once a week at our school sites. But that is something we've definitely thought of, and it lends itself to what the other Brooke was mentioning, or another person, like, we can't expect all these families to take all these kit materials and have them on hand when we jump on live with them. And so I think for many of this distance teaching, minimal amounts of resources might be preferable, unless you really know you can get them into the kids and the parents' hands. But we were thinking about, Dawn, like you were saying, by request only.
This is Nick from the Edible Schoolyard. I can say that the Berkeley Unified Cooking and Gardening Program did a similar thing where they had gardening kits available at the meal pickup sites. And it was opt-in, whoever wants can take, but they weren't sending it home for everybody. But again, using the meal pickup sites as a place where families are already coming to the school and picking up resources. And so that's a great opportunity to distribute kits as well.
And as much as you could streamline it into the school distribution, whether teachers are dropping off packets, learning packets, if you can get your handouts in those teachers' learning packets or on their Google Classrooms or whatever their distribution manner is, I think you'll have more success. I also see Linda raised. Linda Los Saunders, can you tell us where you're from and your organization, and then share out?
I am from New York. I work for Cornell Cooperative Extension as an ag and food systems educator. I go into schools in my county and teach ag in the classroom or some part of ag in the classroom. One of the things that I suggest for the grow bags to expand on the idea of sustainabilities is to have or get the word out that you're collecting dog food, cat food, horse food, cattle food that comes in. You want to collect the bags that the food comes in that is very tarp-like, and it is very easy to make those into grow bags. All you have to do is cut the bottom end off because of the way it has paper on it. Cut it off, fold it, stitch it, add a couple of handles, and you're ready. And the handles don't have to be anything more than ribbon.
Awesome. That's a great idea, Linda, to make some grow bags quick and easy. Thanks for sharing. And looks like we don't have other hands on this question. Tristana, if you want to pose the next question.
Awesome, thank you, and thanks everybody. And again, folks, as you're looking at the questions and Q&A, if you have one that you'd like to kind of upvote, feel free to kind of click on the thumbs up so that we see that we have multiple folks wanting that question to be asked. I'm kind of going in order of the most quote unquote popular. So how are folks collecting data about engagement with your virtual learning resources? Please raise your hand if you'd like to share. We've already heard about Google Forms. We've heard about Mentimeter, Salesforce, and Form Assembly to capture data. So any others in addition to that, or if there's anything you'd like kind of share about how you've been using those or any best practices with that. We'll see if anybody raises their hand to share verbally, but I already see a bunch of answers in the chat.
So Brooke, do you want to address how you're tracking your engagement of your attendees? You might be muted, Brooke. No, people look unmuted.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Oh, apologies. So one of the things we're doing before and after, or beginning of the year and end of the year surveys, family surveys and student surveys, so that we can ask simple questions because of course, one of our major initiatives is looking at healthy habits, both in eating habits and body activity, since we're seeing the long-term effects of constant Zoom or constant distance learning protocols. So doing really simple questions for the kids, like on a scale of 1 to 5, how much do you like vegetables? So at the beginning of the year, before they've participated in the garden program, and then at the end of the year, so that we can, take that to people in our community to help with partners and funding for future programming, because we realize that really the health incentive is going to become a huge concern for so many people, and then therefore it's going to become an opportunity for help with funding programs that, of course, everybody who's here knows why garden programs are so important, and we realize all of the different reasons, but it's only now really that nationally, internationally, globally, that everyone is realizing that it's so important to have hands-on learning like gardening, and also to have healthy eating habits.
Thanks, Brooke. I would just add to the idea of tracking your engagement. So many Google tools have what they call Google Analytics built into them, so you can see how long people have visited your websites and for how long. And of course, YouTube does the same thing. Using Google Classroom as well, you could track your students' engagement by having them communicate to you through the question section if they're in the place where they can actually type. They're at the right age. So a lot of the technology tools have analytics built into them. So just dig deeper into the tools you're using, and you may find some great data. So do we have any other relevant questions, Tristana?
Yes, we've got a question, a bunch of questions essentially all about what kind of technology are you using to create your videos, and how are you editing? Are you using your smartphones? Are you using video editing software, wireless mics? And do you have any specific resources? So if you can share in the chat or verbally, specific to Chromebooks. It looks like, in terms of editing, we've gotten, just using iPhone and iMovie for editing. Not ideal, but can kind of help do that. And we've also heard from some folks that, editing just isn't possible for them, and that's just kind of the decision they've made in terms of their capacity for the organization. So just kind of hearing from a bunch of different folks. Let's see, folks do use wireless mics. Edpuzzle.com allows you to add magic touches to your videos and track your students' comprehension. They can also give live feedback while watching videos. So that's pretty cool. Flipgrid is fun for kids to share videos, but it's meant for 12 and older. And then some, folks are just using selfie sticks. So anything in addition to that, share via the chat or raise your hand if there's anything else in addition to share. Great, it doesn't look like we have any hands raised, but there are some other thoughts in the chat. Let's see.
Tristana, I want to call it a resource that I saw at your foundation share when you did your video contest. You had a really nice handout on tips for shooting videos and just using your phone, because our phones all have great video quality, most phones do. So I'm wondering if we could find that and share that, or if we could share it in the follow-up, because that was a really great summary. Am I correct about that, Tristana, that you guys had a how to shoot video handout?
Yes, we did. And I'm not a communications expert, so I don't know exactly what it said, but I will totally get you a copy and we can send that out after via the forum for sure. Great, it looks like you might have one hand raised. Brooke, I think your hand is raised. And
yeah, thank you, friends. So another thing that I've started doing with videos is I'm starting with my mask on, because we're talking about transitioning back into the classroom starting in November. So one thing that I want to remind everyone is that our teachers, we've all started wearing masks just for the beginning, kind of like when you're watching a press conference of the governor. So what I start with, a cute kind of vegetable themed face mask so that my students can get used to me looking like that. And then I take it off to start the online lesson, so that way whenever we do go back into live teaching, they'll be used to seeing me in that fun way, and it won't be intimidating or stressful.
Great, thanks so much, Brooke. Awesome. Well, thank you, everyone. We're about at time. Just want to, again, thank you, Kids Gardening, both Sarah Pounders and Christine Gall, for organizing this amazing, very interactive virtual gathering. Thank you, John Fisher, for your support at Life Lab. And thank you, everyone, for all of the different pieces you shared, all of our panelists, as well as our attendees. This has been super interactive, and I hope you all are coming away with some great resources for some virtual distance learning. And have a great rest of your day.
Lots of chat coming in. We'll let the people continue share some resources, and then we'll close it out. This chat should be accessible in the archive that is sent out. So thank you all. Goodbye.